Hello, I'm Jenya Delima. Welcome to Writing and Editing, the author-focused podcast that takes a whole person approach to everything related to both writing and editing. Having a child can change so much about us and about our lives, and those first few months can be especially difficult, both physically and mentally. But one topic that still doesn't receive adequate attention is postpartum health. Here to share how to depict it honestly and accurately is Jaime Parker Stickle, and she'll also be sharing how she made it a key part of her debut thriller, Vicious Cycle. Well, I am so thrilled to have you here, Jaime.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I love your show. I think it's
Oh,
so smart.
thank you, and I loved your book. But also, so before writing Vicious Cycle, how often did you see the topic of postpartum health come up in fiction?
Not a lot, I'll be honest. And it wasn't until a couple drafts in of my book that books started coming out with it just a little bit, or it was played as a thriller. Like there's something wrong with the mom that she's going through.
Yes.
And it was articulated as though she was turning into a monster or that there was something wrong with her and not the system that wasn't paying attention to us. Right? What I'm trying to say is there's nothing wrong with the thriller aspect of it. Like, I love that idea. But what I want to take away from it is the idea that the woman herself is the monster. It's the mental health issue. And we're the ones feeling the thriller, not the people around us, right? It's an internal battle, an internal
Mhm.
struggle for us, not the people around us that we protect from it, which only exacerbates the issue.
My goodness, yes. And I think that you depict that so well with Corey because we do see her even thinking, what should I share with people and what should I keep to myself? And how much of this, and I'm using finger quotes here, not that people can see it, but is normal. And she doesn't really have those resources available to her to tell her this isn't something to be scared of, or this is something you should be able to turn to people and get help with, or you should be able to share it with those around you and not feel like you need to do this in isolation.
Yeah, 100%. And thank you. I think that there wasn't enough information for our mothers or that generation. I remember my mom struggling and it felt like neglect, but
Mm,
really she was hiding because she was afraid and nobody was, giving her the proper attention to going through this postpartum anxiety and postpartum panic disorder. They only wanted to treat or tell her it was baby blues or treat the depression aspect of it. And I want to scream it out loud so that people start identifying with a character in a book and get the help they need, like support that it's nothing to be ashamed of. And you should be able to share it with your partner. It should be able to be discussed in groups of women. It should be something that isn't so secretive, kind of like perimenopause and menopause. Now,
oh my
these
goodness.
generations bringing
Yes.
it up, right? So that was important to me is sometimes we use literature, novels, books, genre reading to escape. And I definitely do that. And I love it. So that's why we picked the genre of a crime thriller.
Hmm.
But I also wanted people to identify better with the protagonist so they could see themselves and feel like championing themselves through Corey, the main character.
I want to go back to a phrase you used, which was baby blues, because we still see that come up so often. And even how the choice of phrasing can make our experiences feel one way or another, or even feel like they're being diminished.
Yeah, 100%. When you tell someone they have baby blues, basically it's almost putting a title that you're not appreciating being a new mom, right? Like all of a sudden you don't like your baby or it's too much for you or there's something wrong with you or it's dismissed. It's baby blues. Everybody gets it. It'll be gone in a month or so.
Mhm.
That's not usually true. One, you love your baby so much, but you also have this imbalance of hormones that you can't explain. And it can go on for a year, 2 years past that sometimes, especially if it goes untreated or uncommunicated. I remember going to my doctor, bless their heart. I love my doctor. And I said, there's something not right. And he dismissed it and said, well, you have a history and a family history of anxiety. And I was like, sure, but doesn't everyone have a little bit of anxiety in general? Yeah, like I get afraid sometimes, but like it doesn't debilitate me and I feel debilitated. And it
Right.
was just like, well, you'll get over it. So, yeah, that was me exclaiming with my hands, like, I'll just get over it. It was
Yes. It's these
terrifying.
dismissive responses that I think make it feel even harder to reach out for help or to say what is going on because then you get into that mindset of, well, one, it's going to be over with quickly and I can do it on my own if it'll be gone in a month. But then you have that follow-up anxiety that now results from, well, it hasn't gone away, so what's wrong with me? And it does become that internalized, I don't know, almost shame that you're putting on yourself because you feel like
Yes.
now it is your fault because you're not over it in a month and you should have been because that's the message you've been receiving.
Yeah, that's so smart. Exactly. That's exactly it. And then that's when it becomes debilitating. And listen, everybody can love who they want to love and everyone marries who they want to marry. That doesn't mean that it's the person that's going to give you the most emotional support, period. And so sometimes you're out there on a ledge by yourself. And that doesn't mean that your partner doesn't want to help. They just don't know how either, right?
Mm,
So it really takes a strong person, and you need to tell that strong person, there's something wrong with me. What do I do? If it's a best friend or a parent, or if it's not your spouse, right? Or your partner, because there is nothing wrong with you and you need someone to mirror back that information. Because if you stare at your own mirror and people say, look in the mirror and tell yourself positive things and then you'll go about your day. But if you're only staring in a mirror telling yourself negative things, like there might be something wrong with
yes.
you, that's not going to get you very far, right? So you need an external mirror, somebody that will support you and find that help for you. My husband took me to work with him and the baby because he couldn't not go to work because maternity leave and paternity leave was up and I was a mess. So he would take me to work and his clients were super nice. Very, his clients were veterinarians and,
Mm,
other small business owners. So they were all very kind about it. Nobody ever spoke to him about me behind my back and said anything was wrong. I think most people were like, I know exactly what she's going through. I've been there and I don't want to say it out loud.
hmm. Which shows just
Um,
how common it is versus what we see, like you said, in fiction
yeah.
really before now, where it looked like there was some sort of outlier or such a rare occurrence that it should be treated as other.
Exactly. 100%. I don't want women to go through life feeling villainized or that they don't love their child enough, that these baby blues quote, it's such a stupid phrase. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. It's such a stupid phrase.
Yeah.
Like, that means you're depressed about having your kid, or that's how we internalize that, right? That's
Right.
not the case at all. And it's not that it's too much to take care of the child, it's too much to take care of ourselves, is the problem. And we need someone to say, it's okay. And medication's okay. And this is going to help it. And if it doesn't, we have something else we can try.
Hmm.
There is a light at the end of this tunnel, and we're going to get you there together. And I want it just to be as talked about as perimenopause is talked about right now. I want groups to talk about it. I want OBGYNs to talk about it. Hey, this might happen once you have the baby. And if it does, let's talk about it.
Hmm.
Like it shouldn't be some big secret that we're glossing over. It is debilitating sometimes.
Yes, and I like that you've said that it is a, quote, stupid phrase because if we care about language and what it's telling us, baby blues, it has baby right in the name. It's putting the focus on the baby. So versus postpartum health, which is putting the focus on what's happening within your body, what chemicals are being released, the response you're having to those chemicals, that is something you don't really have full control over. This is not something you can independently just get over or talk yourself out of. But yeah, like you said, baby blues. So you're
Yeah.
associating all these feelings then with the baby, with having the baby, not on the things that are happening as a result of having had the baby.
Right. Right. I mean, you give physical therapy to someone who's had their leg broken and
Mhm.
healed in surgery, and having a baby is a huge surgical matter or a huge medical feat. Even if you don't have, a surgical procedure when you have your baby, you're still going through a massive traumatic experience with the body, and we should be giving some sort of mental health, call it physical therapy if you want to women postpartum. birth, especially in this country where we don't have the strong community sort of resources. Some people will say that they were on a food train through their church, or, they found a network of moms, but this was a couple months after having the baby, right?
Oh,
We
right.
need community immediately. Like there should be a course right after having that baby. Like, hey, come sit in this group and let's talk about, and it should be free, like when you have a baby, it's so expensive in this country to have a baby, even with health insurance,
Mm-hmm.
that most moms aren't even going to pay to go for further treatment post having it, right? So
Right.
I don't know. There's just so much. There's so much I want for women who have had babies recently or in the past. And if I could go back and hold my mom who had four and had severe postpartum after each one, I think I would have been raised differently.
Oh, yeah.
And I think like she wouldn't be the person she is today. And I think she'd be happy. And I think that, it makes me sad because nobody came and held her or told her it was okay, or that there was help out there for this and that what she was feeling was normal.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody did that. And she became isolated and she hid, she lost friends, she didn't leave her bedroom. And I know I'm talking about somebody else's story, but I lived through it as a child. And I just feel like if somebody had come and supported her or said, I went through this too, and it's going to be okay, or here's some things we can do to get you out of this, yeah, I would have had a different experience. Maybe I wouldn't have written the book, which would have been
Oh,
terrible. But anyways,
yes.
'cause I love the book and I want people to have it just because I think Corey's story is important.
Yeah, so how did you show the support of having a family or having a community around you with Corey's story?
Real quick, are you feeling stuck and unable to make meaningful progress writing your novel? If so, I invite you to listen to my podcast, Speculative Fiction Writing Made Simple. This is the show that's all about how to brainstorm, write, edit, publish, and sell your novel. As a certified book coach, I share my expertise and guide you to crafting a novel you'll be incredibly proud of. What are you waiting for? Let's get started.
Yeah. So one of the things is, without saying too much spoilers, her community of neighbors, Highland Park in Los Angeles, is beautiful. It is this resource that I think is missing from a larger part of Los Angeles in general, because we have a lot of apartment living and rental living. And so we lack in that, knowing our neighbors. But in Highland Park, the neighbors are so important, and you're living right on top of each other in these, small communities, that you always leave your door open.
Mm.
So Corey has a neighbor named Elsie who really is invested in Corey's well-being and really does sort of show up when needed. And we see her do that multiple times in the book. But also, while she struggles in her marriage, which does happen to a lot of women when they have a baby, her husband at the time does want to see her better and does push for her to take steps to call someone and ask for help. So I think that's really important as well. And of course, she meets some people from her life and her community from work at the spin studio, where she realizes people aren't attacking her or judging her. She's judging herself. And so seeing that reflection of like, oh, they genuinely like me, makes her want to also seek some assistance, some health assistance. So, yeah.
Well, you also share snippets of her life from before she became a mother.
Mm.
So, why was it important to include these and let the reader see a glimpse of what she was like pre-motherhood?
Yeah. Well, I think, it's interesting because that was questioned a couple times in the writing of the book by people,
Oh,
that maybe
really?
there was too much history given. And I don't think so.
No, I don't
It's just, I feel that it's important because when we don't give background of a person to show their capabilities and where they've been in life, we're then in a vacuum of them in this mental health crisis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's their whole identity. And I did not want that to be Corey's entire identity. I wanted to show how strong of a character she is as a human being, how strong and how resilient to overcome certain things that happen, day to day for women. And they have to pick themselves up by the bootstraps or put on their big girl pants and still work and still go out and still live life like nothing happened to them. And
Yes.
so, yeah,
And taking care of a child the whole time.
the whole time, there's no break.
Right, which we see with Corey too, because the baby is sort of this constant presence.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to it being a thriller, I also think and would like to have you talk about how this heightened the tension and both with internal and external factors because she does have her son with her pretty much all the time.
Yes, yes. And I'm I'm not setting myself up for criticism, but I sort of am, right? Because like some people will find that disturbing. Um and I
I mean, there
understand.
are a few situations that maybe are not the most baby friendly, but
Exactly. But I think that at the heart of it, that was building the tension that there was a child involved in the middle of this. However, life is messy. There is never an instance where a child isn't present in this world. Thank God. And they live everywhere. And so Corey having her child with her, I mean, that's a reality of a lot of women today working because childcare isn't affordable or because they are suffering from separation anxiety or because they're freelancing and so they don't know if there's money coming in or not. So your child is something that you have to figure out, how am I going to deal with this? And that sort of ratchets up the tension just from the perspective of we know she's not taking that kid to daycare. So, oh crap, right? And then I think you asked for a different part of it too, the external part of it, which is Corey going through her own thriller inside her own mind, right? Like she's afraid of everything that looks dangerous,
yes.
knives,
And then
ropes.
her intrusive
Yeah,
thoughts that she has.
exactly. So that against the backdrop of real threats in the world, and you're like, are you paying attention, lady, to the real threats in the world or just the made up ones in your intrusive thoughts? Kind of puts you on this, not to be cliche, but on a knife's edge, right? It's
Right.
like she literally is putting herself in danger because she's so wrapped up in the danger of her own mind that she's not separating the two things. The external world feels safer to her throughout the book than her
Right.
own brain.
But
Yeah.
anyone who's had severe anxiety, I think, will recognize that because even when you're in the midst of it and you realize that maybe this is not the thing that is really the most dangerous part in your life, you can't just turn it off and rationalize it and logic your way away from it.
100%. 100%. And that's the part that like sucks. They're like, there's great training of you can change a thought in 30 seconds. So if you start to receive anxiety, immediately go to that last bike ride you took or that walk or put a podcast in your ears and blast it like in headphones so that you're listening to somebody else's thoughts and conversation versus the one in your head. And those are great. These are great techniques. There's tons. You can hold ice and then your body has to like, because your hands are freezing, signal your body response to save your hands versus the thoughts that are going through. However, when you are in a severe attack,
Mm-hmm.
to even think about changing is almost moot because it's too late. It's too late. You're already in it.
Yes, because I think that goes back again to the need for community or support systems because you have to know that those techniques exist before you can utilize them, or even know that you can look up that there are techniques available because you might
Yes.
just feel, again, if you've only heard just think your way out of it or distract yourself, but how do you distract yourself? What do you distract yourself with? Am I doing something that's distracting enough? Because then when it doesn't work, again, it goes back to those feelings of failure and that you have let yourself down. Not that you should have been trying a different method, not that there was a different method.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I remember my first massive panic attack, and I had the baby, and I ran outside to a neighbor's house, and this is bringing community back into it.
Mm-hmm.
And this was an older neighbor. They had a 10-year-old at the time. I just remember looking at them and saying, something's wrong. I might be having a heart attack. Like I didn't know I
Right.
couldn't identify what was happening. And I didn't even think to call 911. I just threw my phone at them like they didn't have a phone or something. And I was like,
Right.
call someone,
Which
call
is funny
someone.
now. I'm sorry for laughing, but it's just
No,
one of those
it's
things. Yes.
super
At
funny
the
now.
time, it's the worst.
It was the worst. And they sat me down and they made me a cup of tea. And she identified it as, I think you're having an anxiety attack. Let's sit
Mhm.
down. So we sat down. She held the baby and she gave me a cup of tea, but it was caffeinated. So
Oh no.
30 minutes later, it was so much worse. But my husband had gotten home at that point. And yeah, I mean, the distraction was nice, but the minute it was over, the attack was back, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's circular, and you need sometimes medicine to be able to stop those thoughts. I needed medicine. I'm still on medicine today. And I'm so glad. I'm so glad that it works, because I came off it at one point because my son was older and I thought, hey, maybe this is done now, whatever. And I came off for a year, and a year to the day of coming off, I had another massive panic attack. And I was like, nope, not doing this again. No way. Yeah, sometimes it's not a technique that's going to help you. And medicine's not everything. Like you can still have mini attacks on medication. So that's when, though, it's slower to come on. You can feel it in advance, and you can use some of those techniques to stop it in its tracks, which is great.
Mm-hmm. Well, going back to Corey a little bit here too, how do you think her various experiences, including those of a new mother, make her especially attuned to what's really happening with the suspicious deaths in her community?
Yeah. So I think that when you're going through an emotional mental health crisis, it makes you more empathetic in
Mhm.
general. You start to really internalize or take on the emotions of the community, the emotions of people around you, what's happening in the news. It just makes you more sensitive and tuned in general. Plus, it helps that her career in the past was that of a researcher into crime, right? She's a
Right.
journalist. And so, one, she's always paying attention in general. Two, going through the mental health issues has made her more sensitive to paying attention. It's made her more raw. Her nerves are absorbing and taking everything in at such a quick speed. And that sort of resembles the panic attack. I was making a parallel there of how quickly she was taking in information and how quickly the panic attacks would
Oh, yeah.
come in. Yeah.
Yeah, because I can see that. Yeah. I'm even thinking back now to the book, but yeah, you get those feelings of it just feels like everything's rapid fire
Hmm.
and having that, I don't know, almost hyperdrive thought process. So you are seeing connections and things, and then the frustration that she feels though too with people because she is making these connections or putting pieces together, and it just feels like everyone else is sort of just slogging through the mud in comparison.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. She's listening to the podcast at, what is it, 2.5 speed, and the rest of
Yeah,
us are
like point 0.5, right?
5.
Everything's
And
long and drawn out.
that's right. That's right. And for her, it's like she put that audiobook on and she's like, whew,
Auctioneer speech, yes.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, you get it. I so love that you got it. It makes me like cry a little every time a woman really resonates with it who's read it. And it brings me so much joy because you realize how big our community actually is, right? And that's so important. And I had a woman read it who doesn't have children, who she felt like, she's like, I feel like I identify with Corey and I don't even have kids. And I think that at the end of the day is the point, is that women in general are so maternal.
Yeah.
So you can understand everything she's going through, regardless if you have children or not. So yeah, I'm so glad you got it.
Yeah, I mean, you want to nurture Corey too. You want to just give her a hug and
Oh my God, yes. Yes, and I have. And in book 2, which isn't announced yet, so I can't say anything yet, but in book 2, she does get a little bit of a hug, which is nice.
oh, good. Well, and I'm
Yeah.
also glad to hear there's a book too because I loved this. and I shared the cover with people as I was reading the galley or the e-arc. And I thought, again, too, like you were saying, one of the very first questions, when I've normally seen postpartum representation, that has been the focus. She doesn't really seem to have much of an outside world. She's not really doing anything else except dealing with a mental health crisis. And again, a lot of it has been what's going on with her, or we see it in almost a horror aspect where is she really going through this or is it something else? And it hasn't usually been given this real life accuracy that we have here. But also, I love that she still has agency, that she's still doing other things. She still has a life. She's still going out and working every day and then picking up on what's going on with the investigation and pursuing it all on her own. It isn't just, well, but I have this and this going on, so I can't. She doesn't let any of that stop her.
Yeah. The truth is, it's not, the 1900s where you're putting us in a room and we're just supposed to nap, right?
Right.
We live in a world that is women work. Women have a life. They have to bring in as much as the husbands do. There's no downtime. We live in a modern society, there's no getting around that. And I think that's where most women exist today. And I wanted that to be very underscored. We shouldn't have to give everything up to have that baby, or, nothing stops for our health either, right? Like, how many women do you know who've put off going to the doctor since having their kid?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I am guilty of that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, before we end, are there any resources or other books or movies where you feel like this is depicted accurately that you'd like to recommend?
Oh my God, that's such a great question. Yes. Okay, this is one of my favorites. Brooke Shields' memoir is a great one. And she talks about her experience with postpartum, and it's really beautifully done. Plus her documentary that came out last year, she does talk about it as well. And she punctuates it, she underscores it. It is so authentic, and I highly recommend it, both the book and the documentary.
Great. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad you came.
Oh, thank you so much. It was great. New friend.
Yes, exactly. And thank you for listening, and be sure to check out the show notes for additional information, including all of Jamie's links. And if you enjoyed today's episode, I'd appreciate it if you could rate or review this podcast on Apple or Spotify. Thanks again.